General Tong, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. I know you've been very busy, but first of all, let's talk about the Prospect Holding situation, because there are a lot of patients who are very concerned.
Yeah.
They hear that their hospital or that their doctor is now involved in this story. What's your word for them?
So patients should not be concerned. The governor and I are focused primarily on patients and on health care and on the workers and the employees and the doctors and nurses. All three of these hospitals are up and running and operating and capable and fully ready to serve their patients. And that's our main priority through this whole thing. We've been focused on keeping these places open and making sure that these hospitals are there for the communities that they serve.
Yale New Haven was supposed to be taking these over. Is that still the case?
You know, I think it's still on the table, but now that we move into this next phase where Prospect Medical Holdings has declared bankruptcy, I think, you know, all bets are off, right? There may be other interested suitors. We don't know yet. We don't know how the bankruptcy court's going to administer what they call the bankruptcy estate, right? What Prospect Medical Holdings has, what its assets are, and there are creditors that are going to come in and make claims. So, you know, a lot of uncertainty right now.
How does a company get into this situation where they're going bankrupt?
You know, basically, these guys, private equity guys from California and Texas, came in here and took over these hospitals that are strong institutions, you know, but they had some challenges and they took advantage of those challenges, and they've taken, you know, $500 million out in dividends. They sold the real estate to another private equity fund, and I think as a state we have to ask ourselves some really important questions about whether this is okay for people to come in and use financial engineering and play games with people's lives and make money at the expense of healthcare and patients and doctors and nurses.
What kind of protections can you tell people about in the future if more companies want to come in here and buy other medical companies?
So we need more transparency. We need to know what they intend for these hospitals. We need to know what they're going to do with the money that the hospitals receive, for example, from Medicaid payments and from the state. We need to know that they're going to honor their tax obligations. Here's the problem. The problem is they told us things that weren't true. They told us they were going to invest in Manchester, Rockville, and Waterbury. They didn't. They told us they wouldn't saddle it with debt. They told us that they would make these hospitals financially strong, and then they sold the real estate, right, and then pulled out $500 million. And it's really hard when these guys, they have all the money and resources in the world. They've got tons of lawyers. They know what they're doing, and they were out to suck money out of these institutions, and it's wrong.
I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about Stone Academy.
Yeah.
What's your message for the students there who really were devastated by their shutdown?
You know, speaking of another ripoff, this is one of the worst ripoffs I've seen in my time as Attorney General. Now, my 7th year, beginning my 7th year as Attorney General, which is hard to imagine. But our focus all along has been on the students. And we hope for many of them still future nurses, because speaking of Prospect, we need healthcare, we need nurses, and there's always been a shortage of nurses. And so what this does is we've recovered $5 million from the owners and the operators of Stone Academy. They're going to pay that in cash, and then subject to their lawyer's fee. This money is all going to helping the nurses directly, either to getting some people their money back or to helping them continue with their education. About $150,000 will be set aside for preparing people for the nursing exam. But the state, this is an important part, the state's not going to take a penny. You know, normally when I bring a consumer protection action, the state gets significant millions of dollars in fines and penalties. I'm gonna say that all of that money should go to the students and to helping students, and the state will take no fines and penalties.
We've tried to sit down with the owner, Joe Birnbaum. He has not returned our calls for the last year or so, ever since the story first broke. Did you get to talk to him at all, and was he repentant at all?
I didn't talk to him. My lawyers deposed him and examined him. You know, you'll have to speak to them and the other owners and operators. I think this is another scheme or plan to make money and to pull money out of these institutions. And the people that suffered are the students and their families. A lot of these are women, women of color, many of whom are immigrants or come from immigrant families, and they have jobs and other careers, and they're trying to change the trajectory of their lives and their families' lives. And just do better for themselves and their kids. And that's why this is so heartbreaking.
Did the owners break the law?
Yeah, I think that they didn't do right by the students. And yeah, they didn't honor their obligations under the law.
Should they serve any time for that, do you think?
Well, I'll leave that to the criminal authorities, but I'm holding them accountable and making them pay $5 million, which is a very significant payment to help these students. My priority, as I said, was the students, and I made a decision that now is the time to come to this agreement so we can get that money from these owners, from these operators, directly to the students where it's needed.
I want to move in a different direction toward the end of this conversation. All fun stuff, though. I got to ask you, you're about to start your 7th year. You're in your 7th year as Attorney General. Do you see yourself running for a 3rd term?
Yeah, I think I expect that the governor is going to run for re-election. I think a lot of people expect that he will, and I'll be the first to support him. I think the governor's doing a great job, and I was just with him at the Prospect Medical Holdings press conference. We're a good team, and sure, yes, of course I do.
Your name has been mentioned as a possible candidate for governor should he decide not to run. If he decides not to run come June, he says he'll decide after the session, would you be interested in running for governor?
I'm going to focus on doing my job. We have a governor. I expect him to run again. But let me say this. Whoever our next governor is, whether it's Ned Lamont or somebody else, that governor better be ready to fight and protect Connecticut, Connecticut families, and Connecticut values. And that may include standing up to Donald Trump and the federal government. The next governor has to be ready to do that, has to have a demonstrated ability to do that, and the strength to stand up to Donald Trump.
Have you had any conversations with Trump's choice for Attorney General?
I haven't.
Any conversations?
I haven't. I know Pam a little bit.
What can you tell us about
I don't think we overlapped at all. She was on her way out when I got elected Attorney General, so I don't know her well.
Are you concerned about the Trump administration coming in?
Of course I am. I'm concerned
What's
about,
your number one concern?
I'm concerned about Connecticut families. I'm concerned about the federal government taking action that's inconsistent with what we believe, which is that Connecticut, our policy is to look out for each other and to take care of each other. And that means taking care of special ed students, right? That means making sure that they have funding for special education programs across the state. That means looking out for the LGBTQ+ community. That means standing with our immigrant friends and neighbors and family.
And what's your message to President-elect Trump today?
My message is that Connecticut is going to do what it's always done, which is stand up for each other, take care of each other, and fight for Connecticut families, and that it is the policy of the state of Connecticut. In many cases, it's the law of the state of Connecticut that we are going to respect, honor, and protect Connecticut and Connecticut families and everyone that lives in our communities.
Attorney General William Tong, we appreciate you being with us here today.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
After the break, the teacher shortage, and later, Jerry Brooks.